This week, the HPT invades Sin City. We are at one of Vegas's iconic casinos, the Stratosphere Casino Hotel and Tower. When HPT comes to Vegas, the poker action is hotter than the desert. Over $500,000 is up for grabs as the final 9 prepare to sit under the worldwide spotlight of the HPT.
This is the HPT.
Sit right down, put on your poker face, you with the big dogs now. Better bring your best game, talk trash all you want. To me it's all the same, you won't leave with much when you come in second place. I'm the one with the stack showing 7 to the jack. Gon' cry to your mama cause I'm sending you back. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. Last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand.
Hello friends, welcome again to the HPT from the Mecca of Gaming, Las Vegas, Nevada. We are at the world-famous Stratosphere Casino Hotel and Tower. I am Fred Bevel. The talented and accomplished pro to my left is Maria Ho. And Maria, when the HPT comes to Sin City, the stars come out to play.
The stars of poker and talented amateurs from all over gathered here at the Stratosphere and created a prize pool of over $500,000. What Hollywood is to the entertainment industry, Vegas is to the poker world. So players here had to bring their A game and be prepared to have their skills tested.
Whenever you sit down in an HPT event, you know you're playing for life-changing money, history, and worldwide television exposure. When you look across the table and see players like David Williams, Erica Schoenberg, Lane Flack, Ellie Alezra, and other stars and professional players, it can be a little intimidating.
But you shouldn't let it change your game. Everybody will get 2 cards and play the same 5 cards on the board, so anything can happen and anyone can win. Cinderella stories are what make this game fun.
They sure are. Well, the players are settled into the final table and ready to battle for the championship and over $122,000. Let's take a look at the chip counts and the money on the line and then get right to the action.
This is HPT's first time at Stratosphere and we have got a huge prize pool. First place, $122,000 and change. Second place, almost $75,000. Every player at this final table is going to go home with at least $12K.
Nice payday for these players. Let's take a look at the starting chip count.
No surprise to see seasoned pro Richard Leindacker on top of the chip counts. He has over $3 million coming into this final table. Stephen Patch is in the second spot with just over $2 million. There's a couple players with over $1 million in the mix, and our short stacks are Dan Allspatch, Tim West, and Tony Capone.
Blinds are starting off at $15,000 and $30,000 with a $4,000 chip ante. First hand of this final table will begin with poker pro Sean Solar in the 5 seat. He is going to fold. Action's folding around here to Dylan Horton. He is going to make it $60,000 with pocket queens. Good hand to wake up to at the final table.
I think you're going to see a lot of min raising here, especially with this crowd.
And look at this, pocket aces for Tony Capone. We are researching to see if there's any relation to Al.
I don't think Al would be so civilized at the poker table.
And Tony is going to go all in. Not a surprise, he starts as one of our short stacks.
Well, Tony has no fold equity and Dylan has queens anyway, so Dylan makes the call. And just like that, the first hand, we are looking at a double up or an elimination for Tony Capone.
Action cards, the first hand of this final table is the dealer we can see standing up to reconcile the chips. Dylan's going to make the expected call, and as the players table their hand, Dylan's going to see he's a 4-to-1 dog, and Tony is poised to double up here.
Tony and pocket queens.
And the flop is deuce, jack, 10, 2 spades.
10 of spades.
No help for either player. The aces are in the lead.
The turn is a 6 of spades, so no sweat for Dylan on a straight draw.
3 diamonds.
Neither player has a spade. And the river pairs the deuce, and the aces are going to hold and double up.
Good start for Tony Capone at this final table. First hand wakes up with aces, gets a double up right away, and just under $450,000 is going to go into his stack.
Dylan's probably not sweating it too much because he could have lost a lot more if Tony had a bigger stack, but considering that was 6 big blinds from Dylan's 25 big blind stack, he's getting a little bit shorter now.
Dan Allspatch in the 4 seat's going to fold quickly. Now we're back on Sean Solar.
I'm surprised Dan's not wearing something more floral. And I mean, you've seen him around, right? He's got some Tommy Bahama shirts.
He's a very stylish man. Sean's going to min raise with pocket jacks. And look at this. Aces again at the final table, this time in the hand of Dylan.
And like I said, Dylan just lost a few of his semi-short stack. So now he's just going to slow play these and call with aces, hoping to get maximum value.
To the flop we go, and again, big pairs are going to collide. Look at this flop.
The flop is Jack 10, 9, 2 hearts, and look at that. Sean Solar has outflopped Dylan, making top set here. Unfortunately for Dylan, he does have an overpair to the board with his aces, and not that much of his stack behind him, so he is probably going to have to commit his chips.
A good hand in a bad spot. Pocket aces about to be crushed if Dylan shoves all in here. And Dylan is going to get his chips in the middle, Maria, and like you said, he pretty much had no other choice. And I'm surprised Sean hasn't called yet with top set, especially in a heads-up pot. You think he would just go ahead and call and they'd work out the chips in a minute here.
Sean's only losing the king-queen here, and even if that's what Dylan has, you still have to call with top set. He has him well covered.
Sean does eventually make the call here, and Dylan's going to see he is in a big world of trouble. He's drawing to one of the 2 aces left in the deck. He could also hit running straight cards.
And the turn is the 5 of hearts, and things are looking really grim for Dylan here. He needs the non-heart ace on the river.
The ace of diamonds, the only card that can help him. And the river is the 9 of clubs. And just like that, we're going to have to say goodbye to Dylan with 2 back-to-back unfortunate hands. He runs queens into aces. Then he gets aces and loses the top set.
It's a rough and disappointing finish for a good player and a friend of mine, Dylan Horton.
Dylan's going to go home with a little over $12,000 for his final table run with us this weekend. More poker from the Stratosphere Casino, Hotel, and Tower when we get back to the HPT.
Welcome back to the HPT here from Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada, here at the Stratosphere Casino, Hotel, and Tower. Let's head back to the final table and we'll send things over to Freddie and Maria.
The final 8 is really broken down to 4 halves and 4 have-nots. As you can see, Richard Leindacker still leads with less than $3 million, but we have 4 players here with 17 big blinds or less.
And you can see the big move so far at this final table has been from Sean Solar. He's up over $750,000 from the last time we checked in. Blinds are continuing on at the 1530 4,000 chip ante level.
I am loving Sean's fedora. I want to borrow it.
He's very stylish. He looks like he's going to a boy band concert after the game tonight.
I feel like that hat is the one that Tony Capone should be wearing with a name like Tony Capone.
It's very One Direction. Look at this. More big cards at this final table. Sean wakes up with Big Slick, raises it to 80. And a couple of players to his left, Richard Leindacker, picks up Ace Queen.
I imagine Rich is just going to flat here.
Well, it looks like Richard is going to 3-bet here after Sean's under the gun raise, and that's going to clear the field as action folds around to Dan Allspatch.
It looks like Richard is taking the aggressive route here, probably thinking that he's ahead of Sean's opening range.
Now it's $130,000 for Sean to call, which he quickly does.
I don't know, I'm gonna check the camera because I was playing with my chips.
Looks like Sean doesn't really want to get into a pre-flop raising war here. He's just gonna pot control.
The flop is 7-9 Jack Rainbow.
And that's not a great flop for either player, really. Since Sean just called Richard's 3-bet there, he could have easily hit that board.
And Sean is going to check this flop over to Richard. Let's see if Richard fires a continuation bet after 3-betting pre-flop.
Richard thinks about it, and it looks like he's gonna fire one and see what Sean does.
Just under $500,000 in the pot, and Richard is going to bet $230,000.
That's $230,000.
It's kind of hard for Sean to continue with this hand out of position, and he is gonna fold, and I think that just shows the power of having pre-flop aggression and the betting lead on your side. Richard's gonna get a lot of respect for his 3-bet right now.
Don't be nervous.
Over $700,000 being added to his stack, and he will be under the gun in this
If they
hand.
mispronounce your name, that's because they don't spend. You think you'll be here long? Is that the idea?
And Richard is going to raise it up with pocket aces. A lot of big hands at this final table.
Huge hands and a lot of great players at this table. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of action.
Piss him off and knock him out, huh?
Action is folded around now to Dan Allspatch, and he is going to fold.
Actually, have a
Sean's going to lay it down. Now we're over to Corey. He's got King 9.
no chip.
He's going to defend with that hand against the min raise.
Go ahead.
And the flop is 3 queen deuce, 2 clubs.
Corey whiffs this flop. Richard way ahead with pocket aces.
No, he's talking about them.
Richard also does have the ace of clubs here in his hand, so I think that's why he's checking back. He's going to try to go for a 2 streets of value with the turn and the river, hopefully.
Turn, please.
The turn card is the 6 of diamonds. Unfortunately for Richard, still no help for Corey. But Corey is going to fire a small probe bet here just to kind of see where he's at.
65,000.
And this is the beauty of Richard checking back that flop there, is he gets Corey to try to take a stab here.
Just for a second.
So now Richard on the decision, 65,000 to go. And he is just going to flat call here, string Corey along for one more street. Another advantage of being in position, Maria. Let the player do the bidding for you. As the river falls, the 4 of diamonds.
And I'm sure Richard's not too happy with this run out, but I expect he's still going to call a bet from Corey. There won't be any value in him raising, but he's certainly not going to fold.
Just under 300,000 in the pot. Corey's going to fire 160,000.
52,000.
What?
160,000.
There's also a busted flush draw from the flop, and Richard really has under-repped his hand the way he's played it post-flop, so I can't really see him folding here.
But he's not married to just one pair either, as you can see him looking over at Corey. And this is the difference between a professional and an amateur. I would take aces all the way to the mattress.
And I think he's just mulling it over, but I do expect him to call. Of course, there's going to be times when you're going to have to make big folds, but the way this hand's played out, it's not one of them.
Good call.
And as Richard makes the call, Corey says, nice hand, you got me. Both players are going to table, and I think Corey might be a little surprised to see how strong Richard really was in that hand. Richard on a bit of a heater right now, as another 617,000 is going into his stack.
The internet is down, people.
Right, in this hand, the suavest guy at the poker table, Sean Solar, is under the gun. He's going to fold.
Yeah, we're not streaming live.
Somebody told you that it wouldn't be coming. But
Corey's going to lay it down. Now we're back over to Richard.
so is it going to be on TV or something? Or is it like a...
He's going to take this hand off.
Broadcasted ever?
Stephen Patch is in the 9 seed here. We've seen him on the HBT a lot.
Like in,
I'll edit it. So like
Tim West, we've seen on the HBT a lot. Haven't seen him in a while, though.
no, I thought Heartland was on.
Action now folded around to Tony Capone. Hey, yo, oh, wait.
What network is that?
all in.
Tony Capone with 15 bigs, and the small blind moves all in with ace 4.
I call.
I didn't think it was on TV.
Wow.
And Dan Allspatch, with a shorter stack than Tony, calls it off here for his tournament life with queen 10
It's not
suited.
suited, sir. You said suited.
Pretty straightforward play here. Blind versus blind. Tony will be going to the flop ahead, but Dan has 2 live suited cards.
Tony's in front.
And the flop is queen 5 ace.
There are aces.
So both players pair, but Tony's aces still best.
Jack of diamonds.
No.
1 diamond on that flop, so a diamond on the turn or a straight card on the turn would be a fun sweat into the river.
The turn is the 8 of clubs, so no real sweat for Dan. He's looking for a queen or a 10 on the river. Otherwise, he will be our 8th place finisher.
Is that a boom card on the river then?
3 of clubs.
Or a 10.
3 of clubs.
Stay alive.
3 of clubs.
Let's see the river, please.
And the river is the 9 of diamonds, and Tony is going to eliminate Dan Allspatch. Dan's always has a cheery demeanor, and he's an all-around nice guy, so sad to see him go here.
Couldn't agree more, Maria. Dan's a great guy. Played a lot of cash with him this week. I lost a lot of money to him this week. And he'll be adding over $14,000 to his weekend profits. We'll return to the Stratosphere Casino Hotel and Tower right after this. Welcome back to the HPT. This is Maria Ho. I'm Fred Bevel, and we have a table full of players competing for the championship and over $122,000 from Las Vegas. Let's get right back to the table.
Richard Lindacker trying to further distance himself from the rest of the pack here. He's got just under 3.5 million. Steven and Sean both have over 2 million. And our shortest stack at the table is Ed Liu with 11 big blinds.
And look at the heater Richard has been on since we last checked in. He's up almost 600,000.
I'm not at all surprised that with the experience that Rich has, he knows how to take a chip lead and further extend it.
Stephen Pat starts this hand under the gun. He's going to lay it down, as does Tim West and Ed Liu. Now we're over to Tony Capone. He's not going to play either. Now to the button of Sean Solar. And Sean's going to fire a min raise with pocket jacks. Corey is going to get out of the way. Now it's Richard's decision to see a flop.
And in an unopened pot from late position, Sean has a huge hand, and so Richard is going to be defending from the big blind pretty wide. He's going to call here with 9-8.
Here come the cards.
And the flop is 4-10 ace with 2 clubs.
Actions of Richard, who checks.
Sean's jacks still ahead.
Sean checks also.
But Sean decides to cautiously check back the jacks here with the ace on the board.
6 of hearts.
The turn is the 6 of hearts, still a blank for both these players.
Richard did turn a gut shot straight draw, and because Sean did check back that flop, I think Richard's going to put out a little feeler bet here.
Yeah, maybe like 7.
And that's exactly what he does to 85,000 in chips.
85,000. Sean stirs up the chips.
And Sean is going to make the call.
I think Sean checked back the flop to give him the option here of calling on the turn.
The river is another 6, the 6 of diamonds. So Sean has the best hand, unless Richard can come up with the right number to get Sean to fold.
And I think when Sean checks back the flop and calls the turn, Richard knows that this isn't a good card for him to bluff at. Sean definitely has showdown value here. And Sean's actually going to go for a small value bet. He believes his jacks is best, and Richard's got a fold.
Fun poker hand to watch there. Sean's going to stack just over 430,000 off of that pot. Blinds are moving up now. It's 40,000 with a 5,000 chip ante. Corey Walland here will be first to act. He folds. Over to Richard. In case you're wondering, yes, we did ID Richard before the final table.
He does have quite the baby face.
Now over to Stephen Patch from Colorado Springs. He's a policy analyst. Lists over 80,000 in career winnings. Nice profitable hobby poker is for Stephen. Now over to Tim West, a professional player from Los Altos, California. He's going to fold. And look at this, Ed Liu. Been quiet at this final table, but he peels back ace-10 and goes all in.
He only has 8 big blinds, and on the button, ace-10 is more than good enough to shove his remaining stack in.
Tony Capone is on the decision now from Nantucket, Massachusetts. He's a restaurant manager.
Sean looks down at Queen 10 offsuit in the big blind, and he's deciding if, with 1 big blind in there, he should call.
Ed is from Seattle, Washington. And I think Ed's hoping to get a call here. He doesn't have a whole lot of chips. He wants to double up and start playing some poker. He's going to get a call from Sean, and Ed's going to like what he sees here. He has got Sean crushed.
I think this is a marginal call for Sean. It could really go either way here. Ed's definitely going to shove 8 big blinds with a whole range of hands, even hands like 9-8 suited or Jack-10 suited or Jack-10 offsuit. So there was a chance that Sean could have had him dominated.
The flop is 7 deuce jack with 2 spades. So both players whiff the board here. Ed's ace high still ahead.
Pretty safe flop for him. The turn is the 7 of diamonds. Ed is still ahead, and he just needs to fade the queen on the river in order to double up.
Ed hoping to find a blank on the river here, and that's what he gets. The 8 of diamonds falls, and Ed is going to double up. Ed almost out the door with just a handful of big blinds. Now going to have almost 700,000 in his stack. That's going to give him some breathing room.
You can't really fault Sean for calling there. There's definitely a portion of Ed's shoving range that Sean is ahead of and dominating.
Tim West under the gun in this hand. He's going to fold. Ed off a fresh double up is going to take this hand off.
We have folds.
Action's folding around here to Corey. He's going to fold. Now we're on Richard.
Back to the small blind with Richard.
Richard looks down at Jack 9 of diamonds. And he is just going to limp in.
Richard decides to limp in here with Jack 9 suited. It's a hand that'll play great post flop. And he's obviously limping in here with the intention of calling Steven's raise, I'm sure. Steven actually raises with the inferior hand, Jack 8 offsuit.
You know, Maria, a lot of these players are pros. A lot of them know each other. Players like Steven are unknown to these players. So are they going to step a little more cautiously around the players they don't know as well?
I think that it's important when you're facing an unknown opponent to try to figure out their playing style before you decide a course of action. And I kind of think that's what Rich is doing here.
The flop is 10-5 deuce rainbow. So both players missed the flop. Right now, Richard ahead with Jack 9 high.
And it looks like Richard is going to just bet into Steve here.
Richard trying to push Steve around a little bit. He's bluffing with the best hand, makes it 110,000.
And although typically this play would look weak to most players, I think Richard is trying to take advantage of the intimidation factor because he is the chip leader and because I'm sure most players here know that, you know, he's been around the block.
Well, Steven's going to put the young pro to the test now. He raises to 225,000.
And Richard is going to float here out of position, calling the raise. There's a lot of turn cards that would be great for Richard's hand as well.
The turn is the 3 of clubs, not the card Richard was hoping to find here.
And in this situation, when Richard bets and calls a raise on the flop, he's probably expecting Steven's going to shut down here and check behind, opening it up for Richard to bet on the river and take it down. But it doesn't look like Steve is showing any signs of slowing down.
Steve has committed himself to winning this hand no matter what it takes, and he is staging his third barrel. There it goes to the tune of 350,000.
He's betting around half pot here, and I don't know if Rich's plan is going to work out. He is going to lay it down.
Stephen Patch, the policy analyst from Colorado Springs, Colorado, has just outplayed one of the young, bright pros coming up in the game.
Welcome back to the HPT, coming to you from the Stratosphere Casino, Hotel, and Tower. Let's get back to the action. We'll send things over to Freddie and Maria.
No real movement in the top 4 chip stacks. The bottom 3 are struggling to get a foothold here. Tim West, our shortest stack, has 14 big blinds.
And the big swing since we last checked in is Sean Solar. He's down just under 350,000. Blinds continuing on at 20 and 40,000 with a 5,000 chip ante. Corey is under the gun. He folds. Over to the young Richard Leindecker. Richard is going to fold. And now over to Steven, who might have a little more confidence in his step after outplaying Richard Leindecker a hand ago.
He's going to raise it up here with deuces to 80K.
Tim and Ed fold.
Actions on Tony here in the small blind. Tony's got about 20 big blinds here, so I'm wondering if he's thinking about 3-bet shoving. Haven't seen his cards yet.
Tony is a restaurant manager from Nantucket. Maria, I know a few limericks to start with. There was a restaurant manager from Nantucket.
And I'm not sure with 20 big blinds if I like Tony just calling here from the small blind. Steven did raise from middle position, and I think ace is good enough to shove here and hope that either your opponent folds or that he calls and you're in a flip situation. But now he's going to take this flop 3 ways with the best hand, but there's a ton of flops that could come that would make it very hard for him to continue.
The flop is Jack, King, 3, all clubs. And Maria, this might be one of those flops you were just talking about.
It is, because even though Tony does have the 8 of clubs in his hand, he is 3 ways, so he's not even sure if he has the best club draw here.
Well, Sean has flopped the best hand with middle pair.
And he decides he's going to bet into the pre-flop aggressor here.
And Steven giving a look over to Sean, but I can't imagine he's going to continue in the hand here. When I play pocket deuces, it's strictly to set up. If I don't set up, then I release. And that's what Steven is going to do. So now action on Tony. 2 over cards and the 8 of clubs.
And this is the point where Tony's trying to decide, does he want to commit with the 8 of clubs? And he decides he doesn't. And I just feel like this was a missed opportunity for him to shove pre-flop.
Sean's going to stack the chips from this pot. Richard Linedecker will be under the gun this hand as we continue on at the 20, 40, 5K ante level.
Not Corey. No.
And he is going to raise it up with ace-4 suited. Now over to Stephen Patch. He's going to fold. Tim West here in the 1 seat, a professional poker player. We've seen Tim a lot on the HPT. He played with us a few years ago, took 4th place at a final table.
Everybody's folding to Rich's under the gun raise here.
Looks really strong when he raised early. Looks like Corey is going to defend his big blind with pocket 6s. Maria, do you 3-bet there from the big blind with a weak pair?
No, I don't think there's any reason or need to 3-bet there.
The flop is 8, Jack, 6 with 2 spades. Gin for Corey.
But it's the kind of flop texture that Richard knows better than to c-bet.
The turn is the deuce of spades. Once again, Corey's going to check over and hope Richard fires here. Boy, Richard really is zigging and zagging in all the right spots. The river is another deuce, the deuce of clubs.
And I think Corey needs to get some value here from his boat, but I wonder if Rich is going to be able to call. The board did pair on the river. Rich does have ace high.
Corey is going to bet $190,000 and hope to get paid. But like I said a moment ago, Richard just seems to be zigging and zagging in all the right spots, but he is going to pay Corey off on this hand. Corey turns over the boat, and Richard quickly mucks.
And I think if the river didn't pair the board, it makes it a lot easier for Rich to fold there. But Corey did show earlier that he is capable of trying to bluff in these spots, so I think Rich just had to look him up.
Yeah, we could use a table to share for sure.
Moving on to the next hand, Tony Capone will be under the gun.
Thank you. Folds. Sean folds.
Actions folded around to Rich.
Beer would be so refreshing.
I don't know if he likes me calling him Rich, but we're friendly, so you know what? I'm just going to take my liberty.
You'll find out soon enough.
Might get an angry text. Some people really don't like to be called by like nicknames or, you know, you never know. I know I don't like to be called Ho.
Steven is going to min raise here with pocket jacks.
I did it to like, see, like I did it purposely.
He's raising from the button here, so I'm sure Ed's not expecting his hand to be as strong as it is. And Ed moves all in here with a 17 big blind stack, which you cannot fault him for that.
No, why wouldn't he? He's got a pair, and it looks like Steven's just kind of bullying him around from the button.
That was the kid with the
And unfortunately for Ed, he's going to need a 5 here to stay alive. Steven's way out in front
I will not
here.
be surprised.
Jack of hearts, please.
Steven hoping to find blanks here. The flop is 6, deuce, 7 with 2 spades.
Ed is still looking for that 5 or a backdoor straight draw here. The turn is the 8 of hearts, and it does give Ed some backdoor possibilities. A 9, a 4, or a 5 here will win him this pot.
Please.
The river is the 10 of spades, and that is not going to be good enough for Ed. He is going to have to leave us in 7th place. The young man had a great run with us this weekend. He's going to go home with a little over $17,000. And Stephen Patch, one of the amateurs at this table of sharks, is going to stack just under $1.4 million. The action is heating up here at the Stratosphere Casino Hotel and Tower. Don't miss a thing. We'll be right back. There's just something about Las Vegas that puts a little extra pep in your step, and it puts a little extra game in your play. Let's check in with the updated chip counts and get right back to the action.
Looks like Sean Solar has narrowed the gap, and him and Richard Linedecker now have similar stacks. Corey Walland has 1.8 million, and Tim West and Tony Capone are short stacks with about 16 big blinds.
Sean been on a heater since we last checked in, up almost 1.5 million. Blinds are continuing at 20 and 40,000 with a 5,000 chip ante. Steve Patch is under the gun this hand. He's been playing a good game against this seasoned final table. He's going to lay this one down, as does Tim and Tony.
Doesn't seem like Tim has had much to play with. He's been riding the short stack for a while.
Sean is on the button with the suited ace-5, and he's just going to limp in.
Normally, I don't really like limping in from the button, but it looks like Sean feels like there's some good players in the blinds, and they'll probably be defending pretty wide, so he's probably just exercising some pot control.
Three-handed going to the flop, which is 6-8 king rainbow. So Corey flops the best of it. He pairs the 8s. All the players check through the flop. Onto the turn we go.
The turn is the 7 of clubs. That gives Richard and Sean an open-ended straight draw now. But it's Corey who's going to lead in here.
Corey has the best hand right now, and he's going to fire 90,000. That's going to get Richard to fold. Action now on Sean.
Richard just folds his straight draw. He doesn't have any money invested in this pot, and he doesn't really want to hit his straight and not have the best straight.
See Corey's discontent for Sean's call there as we go to the river, which is the 5 of clubs.
And now Corey looks like reaching for chips, which means he's just trying to turn his hand into a bluff, because I don't really see why he would bet here. Otherwise, he's probably not going to get value from worse.
Corey fires 105,000, and Sean is going to make the call.
I think that's a pretty loose call from Sean there. He's not really going to be able to beat much, just stone cold air.
Nice healthy pot going into Corey Wallen's stack. Blinds are going up. They're now 25, 50,000 with a 5,000 chip ante. Tony Capone will be under the gun this hand.
All right.
Tony Capone, the shortest stack here with 15 big blinds.
How did you talk? You like that?
All in.
And Tony is going to go all in. The restaurant manager from Nantucket is at risk.
I think that's a little bit wider than I would like to see.
Sorry. That's my
And behind him, Sean's going to go all in as well with ace-king suited.
Sean doesn't have much more than Tony. He has about 16 big blinds.
Corey is going to get out of the way. Now it's Richard's decision.
670.
670, 805.
And Sean
If Richard has a pretty good hand here, he has the chance to eliminate 2 people.
70,000.
And he is going to make the call. Looks like he has ace-king suited.
Three-way.
Should I sit down and stand up? Should I sit down?
And now action over to Steven. He's got queen-jack, and he's going to quickly fold.
Wow.
Expose the cards, please.
So we have a 3-way pot, 2 players all in. Tony is on the shorter stack with ace-6. Sean has him covered with ace-king, and Richard also has ace-king.
That's gross.
So Tony hoping to find a 6 here and triple up.
6 of clubs.
Sean's hoping to find spades. Richard hoping for hearts. A lot of hope going on here.
Right now.
Tim's hoping that there's 2 players busting out this hand, and he ladders.
I'm hoping this final table ends before last call. Oh, wait, I'm in Vegas. There is no last call.
One of the many perks.
Here comes the flop. 2 players all in.
Please.
The flop is 9-8-4, and what a sick free roll for Richard now against Sean's hand.
With the ace-king of
Richard flops the nut flush draw. Sean just hoping it doesn't hit so he can chop. Tony still praying for a 6.
The turn is the 3 of diamonds. The 2 ace-kings are still in the lead. And if you're Sean, you have to be sweating this. You never like to see somebody turn over the same hand as you, but free roll you.
6.
Let's see a river, please.
Here comes the river. It is the 10 of clubs, a blank. So just like that, Tony is going to be eliminated. Sean and Richard are going to chop the pot. Tony 3 outs away from tripling up, but it didn't work out. He's going to go home with a little over $20,000. Congratulations to his impressive run in a field full of sharks. As Tony Capone makes his way to the cage to cash in a good amount of money for his efforts this weekend, we're going to take time for a poker life with Doyle Brunson, brought to us by our friends at Ace Play Poker. This week, Doyle tells us sometimes it's just meant to be. Poker was in the Brunson genes.
There's some kind of intuitive presence about poker players that some people have the innate ability to read people and do the correct thing at a poker table, and some people don't. I don't know what it is exactly. It's just a winning attitude, maybe. I know guys that know more about the odds than I do. They know how to play, the proper way to play, but they don't win. So it's some kind of innate ability that you can't describe, I don't think. I don't think there's really something you can put your finger on and say, that's it. But yeah, I think the Brunsons do have it.
Thank you very much, Doyle Brunson. It's so fun to just say thank you to Doyle Brunson. I'm a fan. I can't help myself. We'll be right back to the Stratosphere Casino for more hot poker action and over $122,000 right after this.
Welcome back to the HPT, coming to you from the Stratosphere Casino Hotel and Tower. The cash games have been great all week inside the poker room. Now let's get back to final table action.
With the elimination of Tony Capone, Richard Linedacker has now established a little bit of breathing room between him and Steven. Steven is still in the second spot, though, with just over $3 million, and Tim West is basically our sole short stack now with 12 big blinds.
Tony looking for a hand or a good spot to push and hope to double up. Blinds are continuing on at 25 and 50,000 with a 5,000 chip ante. This is Steve Patch in the 9 seat. Steve's played a very impressive game at this final table.
He has ace-6 suited under the gun here. I believe he's going to come in for a raise.
Oh my God.
And you are correct. Steven's going to make it 150,000 with a suited ace-6.
He does fully 3x it here, though, which I think to some of the other players at the table might be an indication of his hand strength. He wasn't raising this big earlier, and I think maybe he just doesn't feel like ace-6 suited is that good of a hand, and he was hoping to take the blinds down.
A lot of aces at the table right now. Sean makes the call with ace-jack. Corey looks down at ace-9. He folds. Richard folds behind him, so we're heads up going to this flop. Steven in a bad way right now.
The flop is 8, deuce, 10, 2 hearts.
No help for either player here. Let's see if Steven continuation bets after being the early pre-flop raiser.
And this could be a difficult decision for Sean, because if he does call a bet here, he might have to call another bet on the turn. And he decides he doesn't want to have to go all the way here with ace high and folds.
Another well-played hand by Steven Patch, the sole amateur left at this final table. He's a policy analyst from Colorado Springs. Playing a heck of a game of poker right now. Action in this hand starts with a couple of folds as we go around to Steve again.
Steve gives up this button, this hand, and Tim West looks down at a great hand for him with his stack from the small blind, pocket eights, and he's going to move it all in. And unfortunately for Tim, it looks like Sean has woken up with an even bigger pair in the big blind. Bad situation here for Tim for his life.
Yeah, really unfortunate for Tim. He's going to the flop of 4-1 dog, which comes 7, jack, 9. So Tim has at least flopped a gut shot straight draw, but he'll need Sean to hit a set to complete it.
Very interesting flop for them. Neither player wanting to hit their set now.
Such a TV, such
The
a
turn is the ace of clubs. So Tim's only outs are the 2 10s left in the deck to fill in the straight. Otherwise, he will be our 5th place finisher.
Cards. Let's see it. River, please.
The river is the queen of clubs, and unfortunately for Tim, he just couldn't pick up any cards here at this final table. I'm sure we'll see him back again, though. He's a great poker player.
Tim going home with a little over $26,000 for a weekend of poker. Not a bad payday. And with that, Maria, we are now 4-handed on the bubble of the big money. The next payout is just under $35,000. From there, it goes to just under $50,000.
Richard still picking up big hands at this final table. He looks down at ace king of diamonds. He makes it 100,000.
Steven is going to fold. Now we are over to Sean.
Sean's in the small blind here, and you'll see now that we're short-handed, these players are going to be a lot more involved, and you're going to have to battle against the other players at your table.
Corey taking an ice cream break as Richard is on the decision.
Sean decides to 3-bet with ace queen to 250,000.
And Richard is going to flat call the 3-bet.
It looks like both of these players aren't really trying to get into 4 or 5-bet pots here with ace king.
The flop is 5-7-3 with a couple of spades. Sean, the only one holding a spade.
And Sean, I'm sure, is going to follow this up with a continuation bet. His ace queen could definitely be the best hand here. Richard didn't 4-bet him pre-flop, but I expect Richard to make this call.
125,000 is the bet from Sean. And Maria, you got to think with a raise and a re-raise, it's pretty hard to put either of these guys on a 5-7 or a 3.
Now it's just a matter of whether or not you think they have an overpair in their hand. But with the turn being an ace here, Sean's definitely going to think he has the best of it with ace-queen. But as you could see, Richard has him out-kicked, and I feel like Richard is just going to call this turn bet. He probably wants to get Sean to bet again on the river.
Big action card on the turn here with the ace of clubs. 150,000 is the bet to Richard. And Maria predicted correctly. He's just going to flat call.
There's not many river cards that Richard is afraid of here, and like you said, it's hard for him to put Sean on 7s or 5s or 3s here.
The river is the 3 of diamonds, so Richard has the best hand, and it looks like Sean's going to give up. He checks.
Do you have any white?
I think actually Sean is trying to give Richard a chance to bluff at this pot. I believe Sean thinks he has the best hand here, hoping that Richard maybe has a busted flush draw or is going to try to represent the eights now.
1.0.
If I were Richard, I'd probably go for a little less than half pot here. It's hard for Richard to think Sean has an ace in his hand too, so he's probably hoping to just get some value from jacks here.
Richard gonna bet just under $500,000. Sean snap calls, and they're gonna table the hands, and Sean's gonna see he just got coolered. As Richard's gonna stack a little over $2 million in chips from that pot. 4 players remain for over $122,000 in the coveted HPT championship from the Stratosphere Casino, Hotel, and Tower on the HPT. Thanks for sitting through those commercials. We are at the Stratosphere in Las Vegas, Nevada with $122,000 on the line. Let's check in with the updated chip counts.
And it looks like Richard has no plans to relinquish his chip lead. He has about 4.4 million. His nearest competitor, Stephen Patch, has just over 3 million. Corey's got a little less than 2.5 million, and Sean is now our short stack with 14 big blinds.
Blinds continuing on at 25 and 50,000 with the 5K ante.
All in.
And Sean quickly goes all in with ace-7 here under the gun.
It looks like Sean only peeled back the ace there, but he feels like that's good enough to go all in with his stack four-handed. Ranges definitely widen the shorter the table gets.
Got a call.
We get a call from Richard from the small blind.
And Richard makes the expected call with ace-queen. Now the decision for Steven. He's going to fold. And Sean's going to see he's in a bad way here, drawing to just 3 live cards.
And it just seems like Sean has been running into a brick wall called Richard all day. Richard just seems to have him notched every time. And the flop is king 7-3, and Sean actually pairs his 7 here to take the lead.
Sean hoping that can hold.
The turn is the 4 of hearts, and now Sean is hoping to fade a queen on the river to double up through Richard.
Deuce. River, please.
Deuce. Deuce.
No.
The river is the 5 of clubs, and just like that, Sean goes from almost out the door to out flopping ace-queen and doubling up.
Roller coaster ride, baby.
You got that right, Sean. He's going to stack just under 1.5 million in chips from that pot.
Each pot is pretty big.
Yeah, you're right again, Sean. The floor and the dealer have reconciled the chips. We move on to the next hand. Looks like Steve is going to be first to go here. I like the way Steve looks at his cards. He keeps his head straight forward and obviously looking down on the glasses. If I didn't know better, I think he was blind. Sean's going to make the call with Queen 9 offsuit. Corey's going to play a hand. We haven't seen him play in a little bit. He's going to raise to 100,000 with pocket 9s.
Usually when you see somebody limping in blind versus blind, you know that they probably have a good enough hand to call a raise with.
The flop is 5, Queen 3 with 2 diamonds. Sean's connected with top pair. Both players check.
The turn is the 4 of clubs. Sean checks again.
And Corey is going to fire another 100,000. Sean makes the quick call. Both players looking at each other. The river is the king of diamonds.
That's not a great card, but Sean decides that he wants to lead out. I'm not really sure if he's trying to get value from his queen or if he's turning it into a bluff here.
Well, the river also fills in a flush.
Corey just has 9, so he might fold this river, but I think because of the way Sean played his hand, Corey can't help himself.
Sean made a great bet on the river, too, just 150,000. pretty easy for Corey to look him up with that price.
Yeah, and I think the way it was played, it was hard for Corey to put Sean on a queen here.
We have had a blast all week long in Vegas, and it's fitting that it's ending with this kind of a final table. Maria, the action, like you said earlier, it's been on a different level. What's your take on today's play?
Well, as expected with this many professional poker players, everybody's playing a really good game, but obviously you have to give it up to Richard Leindacker. He came into the final table as the chip leader, and he has done a really great job of maintaining his lead. As far as Steven goes, the lone amateur, he's really been holding his own.
He really has. This goes to show you anybody can play against anybody in the game of poker. Now, do you think you have what it takes to sit down at an HPT final table and compete for unreal money? Well, log on to HPT Poker then and check out an event near you. For Maria Ho and James Larson, I'm Fred Bevel. We'll see you next time right here on the HPT.